Hey folks, welcome to another episode of Cutter One. I am your host, Jay, just Jay, your resident troublemaker and your resident culture warrior. All right, this is according to my records. This is the 75th episode of, the Cutter One, right? So it's been awesome so far, and I plan on passing a lot more blocks of 75 episodes. So anyway, since it's the 75th episode and we're closing in on almost 400, almost 500 subscribers now, this one's all about you guys. And I wanted to highlight some of your comments because, as you guys know, I've repeatedly said that, you know, we as a fandom deserve to have our voices heard. And I wanted to have a channel that isn't just like, and I because it sounds like I'm sort of trying to call people out. And I didn't want a channel that's just like bitching, moaning, and complaining about stuff, right? That would be the easy, very high click through rate, just bitching about things. I didn't want to do that. I wanted to create a channel where we would look at something, I would give my take on it, and then I would sort of open the floor to anybody who was watching it and for their opinions. And I actually and you guys know this, for those of you who are returning subscribers, I encourage, conversations about this stuff. I think as a fandom, we're all mature and intelligent enough that we can have conversations about these things, right? And there's no opinion that's wrong. And as you guys know, the only thing I've ever said is keep it respectful and keep your criticisms somewhat constructive in nature. Don't just say something sucks for the sake of saying it sucks. Explain why and how you would improve it, right? It's a pretty simple concept. But anyway, so I recently did an episode where I talked about this article that came out that claimed that the Peter Jackson movies representation of women and the main characters in Lord of the Rings story, as well as the books, was not good enough, that they still didn't portray females correctly according to the author of this article, and the Rings of Power corrected this grave error in female representation. And so I did the video and I offered my opinion. And like I said, sometimes I will go off on a tangent about these things because I care. I like this stuff. I'm into this shit, right? And then I open it up to you guys, and I gotta say, you guys, you never cease to amaze me. It's one of the things I look forward to, is to seeing people's comments and the discussions and points that people bring up. Like I said, sometimes you guys will catch things that I may have overlooked, or in my I just shoot past, and you guys call it out, and I love that, or offered a different perspective that I may not have been aware of. And you guys do that. I don't know why I had my headphones in. Anyway, and you guys do that all the time, and I think it's great. I think it's awesome. So on this 75th episode, I just wanted to, because some of the comments here illustrate when we as fans, when we get it right. Like I was just like, wow, like you guys just kept knocking it out of the park. So this is the video that I did from a couple of days ago. But the comments, you guys, and I'm not gonna read all the comments, but I just wanted to highlight some because they were just like so like on point that I was just like, hell yeah. So for instance, we have Stephen Fitzgerald right here, who mentions 1309. Elrond does specifically say Arwen's life is now tied to the fate of the ring in the Return of the King film, but I always thought that he meant that figuratively. I always thought Arwen's wasting away in the film was her despairing, because with each day that passed, the more and more likely it became that Sauron would win, and her betrothed and everyone she loved would die horribly. She's not literally dying because of the ring, but she will die if it's not destroyed. That's a good point, Stefan. Definitely a good point. I always thought when Elrond says that it was more of a figurative take on it as well. I don't think that he meant that her fate was specifically tied to the ring in the literal sense. It was more like tied to the ring that, yes, she giving up her immortality status, um, her fate and would be tied to the ring insofar as if the quest to destroy the ring failed, everybody she loved would die horrible deaths, and the future that she envisioned with Aragorn and their future son would not come to pass. And this was something that, and if you know about Tolkien, you guys know that the elves can die of weariness and grief. They can essentially die of a broken heart. And so her wasting away would be the slow breaking of her heart should things have not panned out the way they were. So that was a good point, Stefan. Thank you for calling that out. The next one was from Jennifer Morrill, 5184. So let's get right into that. It says, where to start? First of all, I, a woman, agree with your points. Well, thank you, Jennifer. I appreciate that. I describe myself as a book purist with cinematic understanding. Thank you. Me too. That's a far better way. I'm just like, yeah, I'm like a Tolkien fan, who's got some experience making movies. So I like the way you phrased it. It sounds a lot more professional. I like adaptations to stick as close to the book as possible, but understand that some things just don't translate to the screen. Agreed. As long as the story makes sense, I'm fine. Totally agree with you on that one. As the trailers for Rings of Power started dropping and more stills released, my biggest issue was Galadriel. I didn't see her portrayal as being faithful to Tolkien. I loved strong women being portrayed, but Cate Blanchett as Galadriel showed power, authority, grace, and depth without ever needing to pick up a sword. Rings of Power just showed her as a selfish jerk who is a good fighter. Who cares if she's a good fighter if I don't care about her as a person? Absolutely correct. It's all about good characters, right? It seems like much of the capabilities of the women in Rings of Power is very unearned. What happened in Bronwyn's life to justify her ability to decapitate an orc and rise to leadership? It isn't really shown, so I have no reason to believe it. Absolutely, 100% on point. In comparison, Katniss was a gifted archer, and they showed that at the beginning by showing her hunting with Gale, something they clearly do a lot. And it's evident that she is poor and has learned to survive. So her winning the Hunger Games makes sense. However, Rey from Star Wars, who has never used the Force, but somehow she's able to mind control a stormtrooper and fight Kylo Ren with zero training. Sure, he went a little easy on her because he tried to lure her over, but he still should have been harder to beat. Unearned. Absolutely correct, Jennifer. 100% dead on. A lot of these strong female characters, quote unquote, these days are very one-dimensional, with their strength only being defined by their ability to wield a sword. That does women a disservice. Frankly, it's just as bad as telling a woman she only needs to look pretty. Just give her a sword, it'll be fine. What about her character development? Can she throw a punch? Then it'll be fine. And it sorely underestimates the audience. I agree with you 100% on that. As for the Lord of the Rings movies, did the writer even watch the movies? Let's talk about Eowyn, since she does go in and fight. She is an excellent character. She stands up to Grima when she's in a very vulnerable state of grief. She tries to protect Theoden before she knows Gandalf is actually helping him. She provides leadership when they get attacked on the way to Helm's Deep, even though she wants to fight. Her biggest flaw is not seeing the usefulness of the task being assigned to her. And when she's surrounded by the concept of war being the province of men, she defies that and goes to war anyway, and with the help of a little hobbit, shows herself as a woman and defeats a formidable enemy. And they want to say she was not depicted well in the movie? What? Even Aragorn wasn't the hero. The hobbits were. 100% dead on, Jennifer. See, that's the type of well thought out well presented arguments that I love to see. Not arguments, but points that I love to see. And this is why I think us fans, we need to be more vocal. Call this nonsense out when we see it. Let's see. We have here. Okay, let's see. Mr. P.W. Miles says, funny thing, the strong women are undermined by the plot. Galadriel is made to look stupid and has her famous words to Frodo fed to her by Sauron. Good point. Bronwyn gets, you are a wonderful leader speech from Muriel. Then Muriel drops, we have a new king of the Southlands. And Bronwyn's like, okay. And you know what? And I agree with, what is it, Kathris85, who says this is the perfect response to that ridiculous article. Well said. You're 100% dead on. 100% dead on, guys. It is. Yeah, I don't even know where to go with that. That's like so dead on. So, I mean, like I said, I could do this. Like, here's another great one from Terry Stewart, 1973. That's like a small book, bro, and it's cool. I don't know if I have the voice in me, like sort of got a little dryness going on here. I mean, I'll try to get through, and if I screw up some of these names, Terry, go easy on me, bro. All right, excellent video, so thanks for that. Just a few points. Firstly, with regard to the portrayal of women as warriors, well, in the world of medieval-style warfare, women were almost entirely absent. Dead on, bro. There were a few exceptions, such as, I'm not even going to try, Lady of Mercian, Joan of Arc, and Margaret of Anjou, I'm assuming. These, however, acted as commanders, and it was very rare for women to distinguish themselves as warriors for purely physical reasons. Women generally are weaker than men physically. I absolutely agree with that. Whatever modern politics might say, which is why, for example, off the battlefield in the arena of sports, you have separate competitions for men and women. And in battle, where people are hacking each other with swords or drawing longbows or holding lances whilst riding horses, those who are weaker will get killed. Things might have started to change with the introduction of muskets or guns from around the 18th century, but that has nothing to do with how war would be conducted in somewhere like Middle-earth. And even in more modern times, the relative weakness of women meant they weren't combat troops. Recently, there have been a few war films depicting World War I, such as the excellent All Quiet on the Western Front or 1917, or World War II with Dunkirk, where they criticized because they had no women combat troops. No, they weren't, because having them would have been recognized as ridiculous. Secondly, the whole idea that because women were portrayed as healers rather than warriors, that somehow demeans women seems highly suspect to me. Why should someone dedicated to healing and preservation of health and life be thought inferior to those who wage war? It seems an odd reversal of values to me. Dead on, bro. 100%. Nobody ever mentions that, right? The healers, they're looked at as being lesser. You're a woman who's staying in your lane. Whereas if you're a real woman, you get out there and you kill people as if that's something to aspire to. So excellent point. Excellent point. Thirdly, if you ignore all that and pretend that women are just as capable of waging medieval-style war as men, if not better, as portrayed by Galadriel in Rings of Power, then how are they portrayed in the TV series? From what I've seen, terribly. Galadriel is an incompetent battle leader who happily sacrifices her own people for no real gain. True. And as a diplomat is arrogant and confrontational for no reason, because she has a tempest in her. If I'd been the Númenórean queen, leader of one of the most powerful nations in the world, and someone had spoken to me the way Galadriel speaks to Muriel, then Galadriel would have been locked up before being put in the hold of the next ship bound for Middle-earth. Finally, to end it all, the show portrays her as a dangerous moral coward. After her belated discovery that Halbrand is in fact Sauron, does she inform the other elves of that rather important bit of information? No, she does not. And it seems the only reason is because it might make her look bad for introducing him to Eregion, and because she's been such an advocate of him. It seems like the writers of the show imagine a strong, capable woman must act like the worst sort of male leader to be taken seriously. Dead on, bro. You are 100% correct. Finally, the attacks on the fans and Tolkien himself are entirely predictable. For the man himself, Tolkien has been targeted ever since he wrote the books, using the same excuses, racist, misogynist, etc., and by the same sort of people. It's just getting a bit more exposure with the Rings of Power. This has had zero impact on the popularity of the books around the world, where generally sensible people have no difficulty in identifying with people of a different sex or race. I myself read Jane Austen's books with their predominant female-led characters with pleasure. And in the world of fantasy, I think after Tolkien, my favorite world is Ursula K. Le Guin's Earthsea. I sorry, I don't mean to butcher her name. Earthsea, where the people are almost all brown skin. Will this damage the books? Well, it might, because the idea that a bad adaptation will leave the original books unharmed is disingenuous. A while ago, there was an atrocious film called The Seeker, based on Susan Cooper's book The Dark is Rising. As I said, a really bad film with even less to do with the source material than Rings of Power. But there were many critics who didn't blame the filmmakers for the mess. Quite a lot made the ridiculous assertion that it was because the books were not that good. Thankfully, the film is largely forgotten, and hopefully the Rings of Power will eventually be, but I'm sure it damaged sales of the books for a while. As for long-term damage to the fandom, frankly, if people think there's any merit to Rings of Power, they aren't Tolkien fans, in my opinion. But places like the OneRing.net seem full of such people now, and I've lost all respect for the site. I suspect there will be a split in the fandom between those who like Tolkien and those who like the generic fantasy and the Tolkien industry. I agree with you 100%, Terry. When the Peter Jackson films came out, I used to be a subscribed active member on the OneRing.net, and I am ashamed to admit it now, because now they've become just a shill for whatever, Amazon tells them is the talking points this week for Rings of Power. So I absolutely agree with you, and I also agree with all the points that you make. And guys, this is what it's about. If I didn't read your comments there, guys, don't take it personal. It's just there's a ton of them. You guys are always on point. You guys always have a good perspective, and you catch things sometimes that I miss. And sometimes you're more eloquent than I am. Couldn't even say eloquent. But yes, I just wanted to, since it's the 75th episode, I just wanted to devote this one to you guys, because like I said, you guys, I wanted to make a space where we could all talk and share ideas and thoughts and opinions, and you guys have come through, awesomely, if that's a word, amazingly, by doing that, and I just think it's great. So again, I just wanted to make something that's just my way of saying thank you to you guys for being awesome, for interacting, for the comments, for the well thought out. I mean, some of those comments, that's a lot to type out. So I appreciate you guys getting involved on that level, because ultimately it's our fandom, and it's going to be what we choose to make it, despite Amazon's best efforts to make it the way they want to make it. It'll ultimately come down to us and what we choose to do. And, quoting, and an Astari wizard, I think, who once said to a certain young hobbit, all we have to decide is what to do with the time that is given to us. And I think as a fandom, that's ultimately what it comes down to. Do we let them take control of how this fandom plays out, or do we keep control? And I think we should keep control, and I think you guys are keeping control, and I love reading your comments, and I will make more videos, and I will ask you to comment, and I will expect these big, long-ass, multi-paragraph comments from all of you and giving your opinions, because that's what I enjoy. So anyway, Thank you to everybody. If you like the video, give it a like. If you want to leave a comment down below on this one, write me the book. I want to see the book, damn it. I want to see some Tolkien-esque comments in the comments of this video because you guys are awesome. And I think the world of it. So anyway, if you have not subscribed, please, I hope you would consider subscribing. We're trying to build something here, a little community and talking. And as you see, we tend to have a lot of fun and we're very opinionated and we like sharing our thoughts and opinions and everybody has a good time. And I think it's awesome. If you are a returning subscriber, you rock and you know it. Until then, I will see you guys on the next one. Peace.